Hello, everybody, and welcome to 2021. I hope you are having a fantastic new year so far. And since we're talking about that, I realized coming up on my 6th year of real estate, which is just insane thinking about how quickly the time has flown by. And since I've thought about that, I realized I should probably do some reflection here and think about the things I've learned, the wins I've had, the losses I've had, and I want to share some of those things with you guys. So on today's video, we are going to talk about the 6 things I learned from wholesaling real estate over the last 6 years. And the reason why this even came to my mind is because I was going through my emails and realized that I started my wholesaling journey this time 6 years ago. And I attended a Fortune Builders event. It was a 3-day seminar here in Charleston, South Carolina. I didn't sign up for any of the programs they had there, but it definitely got my gears turning. And I was just motivated along with my business partner to make this wholesaling thing work. So I want to save this email here and I want to look back on this periodically to just look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, this is how far you've come. At this time, I knew nothing about marketing. I didn't complete a single deal. And this whole world seemed so new to me. And if I could just share a few things with you guys, if you're a beginner, to make your investment journey easier, guys, I am all for that. So let's go ahead and hop back over here to my sheet and we could get started. So the first thing I learned, guys, is that you do not want to fall in love with the deal. This took me a long time to actually understand. And I was so fixated on just tracking down individual sellers and putting all my time, energy, and effort into like 1 or 2 properties at a time. You don't want to do that because what's going to happen is that the deal will fall through. And on top of that, sellers can sense when you're desperate as well. And that's not a good thing, even if the sellers are motivated. So please keep that in mind. Don't fall in love with the deal. Create more opportunities for yourself by generating more leads. If you have 1,000 leads in your CRM, then 1 lead or 2 leads, if you're working those, they're not going to seem as important and they're not going to seem as big as all of those other deals that you can potentially be working. So just realize when you start off, don't fall in love with the deal. If a seller says they're going to sign, don't sit there and wait for them to sign that contract. Go ahead and just send them the contract through DocuSign or drop it off to their mail and go about your business. Don't sit there waiting on the seller to call you back. I did that initially and I was frustrated a lot in my first couple of years because I was so fixated on working with individual sellers and getting those deals to come through. And when they fell through, I was crushed. So don't do that, please. Give yourself a better opportunity to close deals by generating more leads and having an abundance mindset where you have a lot of leads to work and you're not going to get fixated on 1 or 2 leads. Another thing I learned is that you should never feel like you're obligated to wholesale your deals to a handful of buyers. I know it could get pretty comfortable if these buyers are consistently showing up to your properties and paying your earnest money deposits on time and they're closing on the deals on time. Realize that that buyer is going to get tapped out at some point. And you're going to have to generate more buyers to replenish those handful of buyers or that one buyer that you're working with. This happened to me and the buyers I was working with at the time either stopped flipping or they didn't have enough capital to buy my wholesale deals. So I was left with these great properties that I couldn't move. So I had to essentially move them quickly to catch buyers that weren't verified. And I wasn't sure if they were going to close. So it was a very scary time in my business. And that's when I realized that I needed to be constantly generating buyers. So don't let buyers strong arm you into thinking that, hey, you're working for me or with me exclusively. I've had buyers that have done that. And it's some messed up psychological stuff that they do when they realize that, hey, you're providing them with deals that are 50 cents on the dollar. They don't have to compete on the MLS for properties that are 75 cents or 80 cents of the ARV. That is ridiculous. So some cash buyers may want to just keep you their own little secret. And as a result, your wholesale fees will be lower. So keep that in mind. And a bonus tip for you guys as well is don't stop marketing your properties, so the ones that you have under contract, until you receive that earnest money deposit from your cash buyer. Now, I know that if you've been working with buyers for a consistent amount of time over a consistent number of deals, then you may not collect earnest money deposits on every deal. But just realize that if you're working with a fairly new buyer, that they may try to ask you to reserve a property for them and not market it to other buyers just to tie up the deal. And I've done that before, and it's resulted in that buyer ultimately backing out or going behind my back and stealing a deal from me, which has happened before. So just make sure you're vetting your buyers and you constantly have more than just a handful of buyers that you're working with. The third thing we want to talk about here, guys, and this hits home with me probably more so than anything else I'm going to discuss here, is that you want to be very, very careful with who you're partnering with. So when I talk about partners, I'm referring to anybody that you're going in on an LLC with as a 50-50 partner. Joint ventures don't really count, but I'm talking about actual LLC partners. Be very careful with who you're partnering with. I partnered with my best friend initially, and it was great. However, we encountered some friction, and I won't go into all of those details, but we ended up having to separate, and it didn't end very well. And I ultimately had to build up my wholesaling company from the ground up because I let him have the wholesaling company that we built together. So make sure if you're going to partner, guys, do it with somebody who's actually going to put in the same time, effort, energy, and most importantly, money that you are into the business venture as well. Really, I can't think of any situations where I would truly want to go back and partner with somebody now. I mean, really, I'm a one-man show just based on me learning about myself over the years. I'm not really a partnership person. I like doing JVs, but actually having somebody on an LLC with me, that's very serious. That's like a marriage. So don't just partner with anybody, guys, because you're combining assets at that point. And you have to realize if you have a family, like if you have a wife and kids, that can be really, really bad, guys. Imagine if your partner goes off on a deep end and one day he just drains the company account and you had all of your money in that company account. You're left with nothing at that point. Ask me how I know this. These things have happened to me. So really, guys, ensure that you are partnering with individuals that are truly meeting you halfway and bringing something to the table. Not just one or two things, but bringing something to the table that will last long term. So don't just partner with somebody because you don't like talking to sellers, which is what I did. So I didn't like talking to sellers. I did do it, but my business partner was great at that. And that was a big reason why I partnered with him. So initially, the first year, that's great. But after we're looking to outsource and scale up the company, you're looking at your partner and you're like, okay, well, I'm doing all this other stuff in the company and his job is outsourced. So guess what? It's going to seem like that partnership is disproportional and one individual is going to feel like they're carrying the load over the other. So if there's any advice I can give to you guys, be very careful with who you partner with. And honestly, unless it's a husband or wife, a really, really close friend you've known for a while, which I don't really encourage that. But if you really need to work with somebody to start this thing out, make sure the roles and responsibilities are clear and that person is meeting you halfway and have that same work ethic that you have. And another thing too, guys, is make sure you're always transparent with anything that comes up. So don't just let things build up and you gossip behind their back. Don't do that. Don't wake up and complain about them and not bring these issues up to them. Bring the issues up to them. Trust me, it's a lot easier addressing it sooner rather than later when things build up and then, tempers are flaring and you pretty much just ruin any sort of not only partnership you have, but friendship as well. So please keep that in mind. So another thing I wish I would have done earlier is actually invest in my education. So I was the type of person where the family background I came from, my parents weren't a huge fan of real estate, but they got burned a couple of times with tenants And I think that's what put a bad taste in their mouth. So whenever I talked about starting my own real estate investment company, they weren't super supportive of that. They had some very choice things to say about seminars, courses, mentors, and things of that nature. So I thought everybody was out to get me and scam me. But guys, you're not going to learn everything you need to know about real estate through YouTube. You're not going to learn everything you need to know about real estate through just experience. I mean, you can, but why would you want to waste all that money? And that's what I did. I wasted so much money on just trying things out myself, thinking I was so special and unique that I had to come up with this special thing myself when other people have done the same things I was doing, which is starting a real estate investment company. That's been done thousands of times before. So why am I over here trying to reinvent the wheel? Now, I would caution this is that you want to invest in specific topics. So don't just go out and join a coaching program or go to a seminar that talks about how to wholesale. I wouldn't suggest that. You could get that information online. I would say if you're having trouble with a specific topic, like with talking to sellers, with negotiating deals, with structuring creative financing, those are things you want to actually go and seek help with, because trust me, you can save yourself a lot of time, effort, and energy if you were to just purchase somebody's course or join their program than to just try to figure this stuff out yourself. And the fifth thing is that I would highly encourage you to make a schedule for yourself and stick to it. Now, this may sound very simple, but really what I'm getting at here is make sure you're not overworking. And I know it's very tempting if you have any type of work ethic like I did when I first started, and I still have it, but I'm just more strategic about my work ethic and the places where I'm directing my energy. But if you are anything like I was when I first started, I was burning myself out. I was working 12 to 15 hour days. And really a lot of that was unnecessary. I was just so motivated, especially that first year, to get out of my job. And then when 2016 hit, I was like not going to go back to a 9-to-5 job ever. And I realized that you may have to put in more hours when you first start off, but make sure you're having some cutoff point in your day and make sure you're sticking to that consistently. If you just sit here and say, well, I'm just going to work until I'm tired and I'll just do the work as it comes, there's always going to be work that needs to be done. And I found myself just creating tasks that really didn't need to be created because I wasn't focused on the specific things I needed to do that day. And that resulted in a lack of clarity and really me just doing a whole bunch of random tasks in the day without focus. I didn't need to work all those hours. At least after the first year, that should have stopped. So I ended up burning myself out and randomly just booked a trip to South America. This was 2017. And I just left my business partner and my company just there to fend for themselves. And I said, peace, I'm out. And I left for 2 weeks. I got burnt out. Was that the right answer? No, it wasn't. But at the time, I really wasn't feeling great about the company, the business I was working in. The business was running me. I wasn't running the business. So ensure that you're verbalizing to your team that, hey, I'm working from X hours to Y hours, and set boundaries. If you like having your Saturdays or your Sundays, for me, I like having Saturdays as a day I'm not focused on any work. On Sundays, I like working a little bit, a lighter load to prep myself for Monday, but Saturday is completely off limits. And I needed that because I was just working all the time. And as much as I like real estate, anything could become too much, and anything that's good can turn into a bad thing if you don't have balance. So please remember that as well. And lastly, guys, we want to be more consistent with our marketing. And this is something that really hindered me for several years. And I was wondering why I wasn't consistently getting deals. It was because I wasn't marketing consistently. I would generate a whole bunch of leads. I would either do an RVM, text blast, or maybe a direct mail blast to my sellers. And then I would get all these leads in and I would just stop and work those leads to see if I could get a deal. And then when I didn't get a deal, I would tell myself, well, we're not going to market again until we get a deal. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous because we lost so much momentum by doing that. So don't take your foot off the gas and realize that if you are starting and stopping your marketing, you're going to lose momentum. And so every time you start your marketing, and let's just say you're marketing to sellers for 3 months consistently every day, and you stop for 3 months, when you start back again, you're essentially a newbie. You're essentially starting off as a beginner. And I don't know about you, I don't like that feeling, just starting off cold and building that momentum up. There's a quote that I saw the other day that really resonated with me. It said, "It is easier to keep up than to catch up." So it's a lot easier to just do the things you need to be doing every day to ensure that you are having a consistent lead flow, which will result in a consistent deal flow, than to get behind and try to catch up and generate a whole bunch of leads when you need to get a deal to pay for employees or marketing expenses. Like I did that so many times. I would stop marketing for months and then I would just send off an RVM blast, send off a direct mail blast. I do all this marketing in a day or two to try to get leads back up. And that's not a way to run a company. Don't do that. So please, guys, be more consistent with your marketing. It will pay off over time. And speaking of marketing and motivated seller leads, I really think seller leads are the most important part of any wholesaling operation, hands down. Your company does not go without seller leads. So I created a free lead generation workshop for you all exclusively where I show you my step-by-step process for generating 100 seller leads in 1 month. And the only thing you have to do is go to ccgarlandmarketing.com, and on the homepage, there's a link to click Watch Free Workshop. Only thing you'll have to do is enter your name and email, and you'll be redirected to the lead generation workshop. Guys, I hope you got some value out of this. Happy 2021. Let's crush it. Let's get to our goals. I will see you guys on the next video.